Being consistent online is one of the most underrated and overlooked pieces of advice. Amidst all the intangibles of life, you can't simply force yourself to be consistent, especially not with something as delicate as being creative. If you're new to this channel, hi, my name's Hudson and I make money writing words online, and in this video, I'm going to provide you with a mixed bag of habits, tools, and mindsets you can use to remain consistent as a writer or content creator of any kind, at any level, and on any platform. Let's get into it. Now, the first is a mindset that really helped things click for me when I first started writing as a side hustle. Now, you may have heard this concept before, but I'm going to combine it with another study to make it specific and actionable. The first part is an age-old adage you may have heard known as Parkinson's Law. Work expands so as to fill the time available for its completion. Essentially, how much time you set for yourself is how much time that task will take. So if you set yourself a goal to write 2 articles or post 2 videos per week, those 2 articles or videos will take you the entire week. If you took that exact same schedule and set yourself a goal of writing 1 article or 1 video per week, chances are it would also take you the entire week. Our brains operate heavily on subconscious behavior, which makes setting your attention so important. Now, the second part comes from a study cited by neuroscientist and productivity darling Andrew Huberman. They pitted mice against each other in a wrestling match of sorts where they put 2 in a tube, and the mouse that came out the other end of the tube they called the winner, the mouse that remained in the tube they called the loser. The mice that won initially continued to win, and the mice that lost continued to lose. What they found was in the mice that had won, a certain part of their brain was activated, which gave them the motivation and determination to continue to win. And you see the same phenomenon in humans. People who win seem to continue to win, and people who lose seem to continue to lose. You can actually use this to remain consistent online by tricking your brain into a state of winning. Something else Andrew Huberman talks about a lot is to set your goals in a range. So instead of saying, I want to exercise 4 times per week, say, I want to exercise 3 to 4 times per week. And what this does is puts yourself in a win-win situation. When I used to work a full-time 9 to 5 and wrote on the side, I would always set the goal of writing 2 to 3 articles per week. Knowing that I want to complete a total of 3 articles, I would subconsciously work to get that complete, and if I was having a bad week or was not able to, at the very least, I would get 2, which continue that positive momentum. Okay, now the second is more of a tool, although you don't have to use the same tool I use. There's many options out there, and that is to stay organized, but more specifically, how to stay organized. Humans are wired to want to express our thoughts. It's how we pass down information and how we grow as a species. For one, our brains aren't desired to remember a high volume of thoughts and ideas at one time. It wants you to express them, to write them down, to draw pictures, to record them in some capacity. And 2, the action of trying to hold too many thoughts in your head is actually painful. I'm sure you've experienced this in your own life. When you keep things bottled up, they just kind of explode and come out anyway. So when creating online, it's super important to learn how to organize your thoughts in order to express them succinctly, because just like anything else, when you have too many thoughts, they can create a bottleneck, and then when you actually sit down to express them, they're convoluted and it's just not efficient. So I use an app called Notion where I dump all of my thoughts at any time. I have it organized into lists and tables for the various types of content I make, but you can use any type of note-taking app that works for you. Now, the important part is, 1, to dump all of your thoughts as soon as they come into your head. I'll get into why a little bit later in this video. But 2, make them incredibly accessible. So what often happens, and again, you may have experienced this in your own life, I know I have, is you write down all of your thoughts into your notes app or on a piece of paper, but they aren't well organized. And as a result, you never look at them again because it's just a jumbled mess and you think that's too much work. Like anything in life, when something appears like it's too much work, you tend not to do it consistently. So I try to keep the rule of making your notes accessible within a maximum of 3 steps. So what I mean is, if I can't open up my phone and access my notes within 3 taps or actions, then I know I won't revisit those notes and those ideas will be good as gone. So how I have my Notion app set up is I can open it up, I tap into what I call my content vault, and then straight into the platform I want to record the notes for, and they're all organized to be able to see where they're going. I've made a custom Notion workspace with all of these pages and tables, which you can download in the description below. I also have a free version which you can adapt to make your own in the description below as well. And the third is creating in batches. I hear a lot of people talk about the importance of writing or creating in batches for saving time, but I don't hear anyone actually dive into why. So in the past 20 years or so since the invention of the internet, social media, and smartphones, our attention spans have greatly decreased. And this is largely due to what is known as a switch cost, the time it takes to reorient from one task to the other. So there has been a longstanding myth of the ability to multitask, and what we have learned today is that multitasking does not exist, and instead what people are doing is just switching between tasks, and each time you switch between a task, it takes your brain time to reorient. It's the same idea. If you close your eyes and spin yourself around in circles, when you open your eyes, it'll take you a few seconds to readapt to your new environment. It's so efficient to make your content in batches because you save the time to have to reorient to a new task. So if you want to write one article, the time it'll take for you to get yourself into the zone to write the article will be the same if you're writing one article or you write 4. And instead of having to reorient yourself and get back into the zone 4 separate times, you do it once, it saves time. But also it helps you to be consistent because, like we spoke about before, it creates that momentum and gives you ample time for rest, which I'll touch on in the next topic. Here's what you can do to save yourself time, mental energy, and ultimately be more consistent. Is to take all the same type of content, try to write them all at the same time. So what I've started doing now is if I sit down to write the intro, my mind is primed to write an intro. I will write an intro for maybe 2 articles and a YouTube video. So in that one session, I've used my one switch cost to create 3 pieces of content. Maybe I do that for the draft. I get myself into a mindset to write a first draft, and then I write multiple ones. Everyone loves to talk about AI nowadays, but I would recommend to use your own brain, create a formula, and turn it into an efficient and consistent content creating machine. Okay, and the fourth is something I call the rule of 5s. So there's a concept in psychology called your working memory. Essentially, it's the maximum amount of ideas you can remember in your short-term memory at any given time. Scientists have revealed to be approximately 5 for the average human brain. Just like the myth of multitasking, anything above that number is actually stored in your long-term memory center. So when you try to remember too many things at any given time, what you're actually doing is pulling in and out from your short-term to your long-term memory center. So what I try to do is keep everything that's important to me that I need to remember now to a maximum of 5. Anything stored in your short-term memory center, that is things that are not vital to your survival or evolution, will be easily forgotten to make space for new information. That's why it's so hard to remember your daily to-do list or task for that day, even if it's a relatively small list. That said, when you want to be consistent online, it's important to have your goals at front of mind. So obviously it's helpful to write down your goals, have them somewhere where you can see them every day, to write them in your journal. That is why experts preach these practices, because it keeps them in the front of mind so you can actively work towards them each day. But what I've always found challenging is that the amount of goals or actions I want to take often exceeds the capacity of my working memory. So I find myself in a state of trying to remember these things and not staying present in the moment. Essentially, it's just wasted energy. So one thing I found really helpful is to condense everything either into acronyms or a short story consisting of a total of 5 points. So say right now you're really focused on exercise, like you want to create a better physique or feel healthier. You want to find a long-term romantic partner, your side hustle, and then your business. So that's not even 5, but that's okay. It's a maximum of 5. So instead of trying to remember all of these, and with each of them another litany of information, which will just take up space in your brain and distract you from everyday life, you can summarize it into an acronym. So I'm trying to remember what I said now. You can see why it's important. What did I say? Shoot, it was
a few moments later.
Oh yeah, exercise. So E, relationships. R, side hustle and business. So ERSB, ERSP. And you can remember that however you like. If you are visual like me, you can write it down. This is actually a method memorization athletes use to remember like hundreds of iterations of pi, or memorize entire pages of books. They break the information down into sizable chunks, often at a maximum of 5 for the average brain. And you can do this with any aspect of your life. So your daily to-do lists, like I said, overall goals, or steps within a specific habit you would like to take. Anything that'll help you remain consistent and keep your goals or your actions top of mind, and ultimately push you to be consistent. And lastly, to take more breaks. Now this one might seem obvious, but I'd like to explain a little more in depth to illustrate the point of how important it is to take ample breaks, and actually how to use those breaks to your advantage. So I recently stumbled upon a 1970s bodybuilder named Mike Mentzer, who has some very interesting philosophies about exercise that I've begun to apply to my own exercise routine, but also my workload, and being more productive as well. And essentially his 2 main concepts were to rest more and to work harder. He tells a story of how he trained and won for Mr. Olympia on a schedule of training 2 hours per week, which when compared to the 2 to 3 hours per day that most bodybuilders at that time spent at the gym, is pretty amazing. His philosophy was that if you push your muscles to the maximum peak of triggering growth, then there's no need to push farther than that. And actually, in fact, if you do, it's counterproductive. He recommends pushing yourself to the limit and then take an ample rest to let them repair, grow stronger, and then next time you're in the gym, you'll be able to push more weight or do more reps, and then rest, and so on and so forth, with each of those peaks and valleys getting bigger. So I found this super eye-opening and helpful in my own exercise routine, but also in how I do my work. I have a tendency to overwork, and sometimes in society we think that more is better. And what I found is, since implementing some of his philosophies into my work, I'm actually able to get a lot more done with less stress and in less time, which is a win-win-win. So like anything, everyone internalizes and connects to different concepts differently. For me, relating it to my exercise and seeing the results there helped it click for me, but it may take something else for you. So I'll just illustrate the point, and hopefully it connects to you. A task that takes you half an hour can also take you 2 hours if you are tired or you're thinking about something else. So what I've tried to do is push myself, my brain, to the limit of how much I can do. So whether that is writing an article or making a video, push myself to the limit and then take more rest than I think I need. And in that, I found that when I come back to tasks, I'm able to be much more efficient, get things completed in less time, and I'm stressing less, which is ultimately just better. Okay, that is the end of this video. I really hope you enjoyed. As I mentioned, you can download my custom Notion workspace in the description below. I also have a version which you can customize yourself for free, also in the description below. Subscribe if you haven't already. Leave a comment. It really helps the algorithm. All that good stuff. Have a great day, and I'll see you in the next video.